Hi, everyone. This is ACDC, all things real estate, investing, and finances. My name is Araceli, and I'm a transitional financial specialist. And I specialize in helping single professional women rearrange their finances, get out of debt quicker, and retire sooner. And I'm here with Colette, my partner. Can you
Hi,
introduce
everybody.
yourself?
Of course. My name is Colette Rava. You're so sweet, and the way you speak and the way you introduce yourself is so sweet and nice. I love working with Araceli because I am a real estate broker in the GTA West. I love working with Araceli because we love real estate, we love investing, we love helping people, especially women. And today we have a very specific subject that we really wanted to talk about. And this is something that we also connect with because do you want to tell everybody about the subject?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that we actually have, the two of us have gone through is divorce, and how it does affect, well, separation, divorce. You have to be separated first before you get divorced, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of leads to it. But it really how it affects your finances and the real estate in this case, if you have had any houses with your spouse. So more specifically, also real estate investing, other properties. So we're going to talk about, first of all, if you are deciding to separate, right? The very first thing that you want to think about is there's going to be a separation agreement.
No, the first thing you got to think about is talking to one of us, because we will tell you this is the right thing to do, this is not the right, or this is an easier path to take, or this is not. And to also, like we've talked about, if you've watched our other episodes, we've talked about emotions and what it really means to have, you know, you're even on the best of terms, you're in an emotional state when you buy a property, right? But also, like, when you're going through a separation or a divorce, like there is, of course, we're not talking about real estate being an emotional process. We're talking about the actual financial impact that takes on you, not just as yourself, but as a couple, as a family. So this is something that we're not telling you not to get a separation or divorce, but really there are steps that you should take before you get there to say, we're done. So to keep you safe, and no matter if you're a woman or a man on which side you're on.
Oh, absolutely.
This can help everybody, right?
Oh yeah, the emotions I think it's a good thing and also a bad thing, because it makes you decide to do things, to step away, and then you're not thinking about what is going to happen with your finances, with the real estate that you accumulated. Is that the best thing to do? And there's certain steps that we're going to go through. So,
oh, sorry. And one thing we both know, sometimes you can go back to revisit things, and then sometimes you can't. So the decisions you make, and I've heard it from my girlfriends too, where, you know, they've been divorced for years now, and they say, oh, you know what, I should have done this, or I could have done that, or if I only knew, if I had this kind of advice. So Araceli, you're not here to give you legal advice. We're here to say, seek legal advice. If you don't like the advice you're getting, find someone else. Talk to many people. I've personally gone through quite a few lawyers, interviewing them, going through that process to see who I really wanted to work with, who really understood the nature of my concerns. And it's usually not just real estate, it's also the children, it's the family, it's the well-being of all of us. And I don't think my separation, I'm in the separation process right now, I don't see it being I think we're amicable. I want to say that right now at this time. What's the date? We're amicable right now. So I want to keep it that way. And I think moving forward, everybody should strive that. You want to stay out of court. You want to have that. We're also going to talk a little bit about the difference between a lawyer and a mediator, but we'll save that for later. Yeah. So really, you're right. The first step is to get a separation agreement.
And with that is, as Colette said, if you are amicable, that would save you so much money. And I understand, you know, believe me, I went through it, and it is very difficult to be amicable, to be in good terms. Obviously, there is a reason for being separated, right?
Right.
There is some kind of conflict. But if there is anything that you can do to stay amicable and come to reasonable terms, right? Then you're gonna save tons of that, right?
It's tons of money. I don't care if you get the cheapest lawyer out there. All the money goes to the lawyers if you can stay amicable. I just heard a story from someone else today, how, saying, okay, well, there was $200,000 that they should have agreed upon. This is from one party that let's just say this magical number is $200,000. And after all the lawyers and all the fees and everything was paid out,
probably gone, right?
It was maybe, $50,000, $60,000 left. So really, when you think of the cost of, I'm not saying lawyer, I am saying, I don't want to take the money. It's not my money. It's my children's money. It's the inheritance that I could have left them.
Well, it could be also for you, because remember, that could be also used for your retirement. You might not have enough money, right?
Of course. Yeah. So this is what we're saying. Like, not that we don't believe in, paying lawyers for their time. Of course.
That's not what we're saying. Right. But the thing is, if you do that, remember, every decision that you make, you affect your finances one way or another.
Financial specialist speaking. Yeah. Listen to her. Okay, fine. Absolutely. So we're in agreement.
The best thing that you can do is if instead of going through a lawyer, you can hire a mediator.
Oh, hold on a second. So the difference really between a lawyer and a mediator, the mediator represents both parties.
Yeah.
And so once one person gets a lawyer, the other person should really get a lawyer.
Has to have a lawyer.
Or you can sign away your rights to legal representation.
We don't recommend that.
Who wants to do that? Right. So there are ways you could do it. If you're amicable and you say, we don't need lawyers, we can actually do this through a mediator, you can do the process through mediation, but to get a final divorce, you will have to
have a lawyer.
Right. Or in front of a judge and to say, do you both understand? Are you both in agreement? Uncontested, is that the term?
Yep.
Uncontested is when there's no children, no property. What else?
When you divide everything right down the middle. That's how I did mine.
Okay.
We did not have any children, and we were amicable to split basically everything down the middle.
Okay.
Debts and also the property. So that was easy. That's the easiest way that you can. Sometimes the major issue is when it comes down to the children, right? That somebody wants to keep them, the other one doesn't agree.
Yeah. There's custody and also support. So once that happens, and even children that are over 18, there still is that kind of schooling that somebody has to pay for. It's support as far as while they're in school or to a certain age. So it's very, very tricky. Even though you think your children are old enough to be adults by, the province or territory that you're in, it might not be the case. So we can only talk for Ontario as well.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So the next thing that you need to do, if you are going to be talking, whether it's a mediator or a lawyer to draft a separation agreement, is you need to have and prepare something that is called a financial disclosure. And a financial disclosure is basically everything that is in your name that is an asset.
Everything.
And
but
that
not
means
just an asset,
everything. Also
debt. If you have debt, you inherit the other person's debt.
Yeah.
Which you really don't want to do that. So when, this is why we say to individuals, when somebody comes to one of us and says, hey, listen, I'd really like to know what my house is worth, let's say in this case, in a case. Where I go, okay, well, why do you want to know how much your house is worth? Well, because I'm thinking about getting a separation and I want to know what I'm going to get 50-50. Then I will speak to my husband. I want to get all my ducks in a row before I even go to that step, which I think is very, very intelligent. If you do the financial disclosure, there's not just, you have to get things ready, like not just your marital home, but also if there's any other properties, let's say income properties, let's say, oh, my dad gave me a condo, but I inherited it way before I got married. If that's bringing in income, those things can get a little tricky. If you don't have a prenup, if you have nothing written, but you were getting income from that property. We don't want to go into detail here because there's so many different things that can happen with everybody. Cars. Do you have a boat? How much is your boat worth? Guess what? 50-50.
Yeah. The same with pensions.
Yes.
If you work for a company that has a big pension and you've been working there for the entire time, your spouse might be entitled to the equivalent of the years that you work in that particular job, and you may owe part or a portion of that pension.
And also, if things are amicable. So this is something that I know someone who didn't get they got a separation agreement, but they didn't get a divorce because they are still on, for the children, the plan. So the dental plan and whatever other medical plans that person's work has. They didn't actually get it. They got a separation, but they didn't actually get a divorce because they wanted to stay on the plan. There are so many layers to a separation and eventually a divorce, that you have to think of everything, every little moment of your time together. What did that mean and how much is it worth? The other thing too, which is a huge thing for me, and I tell this to everybody, not just because of COVID, but even before COVID, is when was the last time you even looked at your will? Or do you have a will? If you have children or real estate or real estate, even a car, even a diamond ring, anything that you have that you think is of value, even like my mug, how much is my great mug worth? So you want to make sure your will has all that very specific information, even, obviously before you separate, but I'm just saying, these are things that we don't think about on a daily basis when we're emotional about, I'm thinking about getting a separation. You have to go through everything.
Exactly. So especially things that are valuable to you. They may not have value, right? But if, let's say that you have
value to me.
Well,
look,
I mean,
look, my mug.
Of course. Of course. But I mean, if you're going to value something, let's say that there is a set of dishes that your grandmother's left you.
Right.
People get so granular about it, and sometimes it's a little silly, but it does happen, right?
Right. And so, can you prove it? Can you prove they were your grandmother's dishes and not my grandmother's dishes? Do you have pictures of her? This is the thing where you're right. People get a little, like nickel and diming about silly things. And that's when this money goes to lawyers, because really, are you paying them to do this kind of administration to fight back and forth? Or is it really serious, items and get over, I've heard horror stories about silly things.
Oh, absolutely. I've heard also people that they're fighting about, the towels, like who's taking them. Like, it might sound silly, but the one thing is, like, even if you're listening to this conversation and you're not thinking about getting a divorce or separation,
right,
to your spouse.
Right.
If you do have properties, if you have income, if something happens to one of you, what is it, how is it going to be divided? Who's going to get it? That's what the will tells you, right? Yeah. So that's what, when you're doing a will, is very important, because at that time you do really have to discuss all of these things, right?
Well, yeah, and it's not just about your will on what you own, but it's also power of attorney.
Yeah.
And living like a living will. So let's say, knock on wood, something terrible happens to you, you're in a coma, and somebody has to make decisions on your behalf. Who's going to do that? If you don't take care of your will now and make those wishes known now while you're capable of doing that, it really is detrimental. And it's hard for especially children or anybody else who knows what your wishes are by, verbally talking to you. But when it comes down to it, like, are you really going to be fighting for your own rights? Like, for what you really stand
to do. And it's not only that, Colette, is you may have said to your spouse, this is what I want. But it is harder for them to prove it because it's not in writing. So, and then if somebody else has a decision to make, let's say your parents or your sister, your brother, and they might not agree with what your spouse is doing, but your spouse talked to you, how can you prove that you actually told your spouse that this is what you wanted. He or she might be making it up. I don't know, right? So
Well,
that is the easiest way.
Yeah, absolutely. So wills and insurance are very, very important too, because who's going to get the insurance money, from if you do, knock on wood, get into an accident or something. But it's also like the one thing that I have to say, if there's one thing that I really, really have to repeat to people, if they're thinking about separating, and I said this not too long ago to someone, where the date of separation is so important. Date of separation, and you both have to agree on that date, because that's when things get decided on, how much is in the accounts, how much debt is there, what are the houses worth, all these things. The date of separation is so important, and if you don't agree on that, that could go to court, and that alone, and I don't even know how they decided, if it's a he said, she said, and then they come to a sort of middle ground, because this could take years.
Okay.
That's the problem. If you say, okay, date of separation, we're going to move forward. We actually have talked to lawyers like within a month or two and get things wrapped up within a year. Okay, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about things dragging out for years. So get your date of separation. I've heard, oh my gosh, I don't even want to tell you the horror. Do you want me to tell you one horror story?
Really quick.
Date of separation. Husband and wife decide to sleep together. She gets pregnant. She has a baby. What's the date of separation?
Oh my God, really?
Oh yeah, and apparently it happens quite often, because after you've been away from that spouse for a while, you're like, oh hey, maybe you're not so bad. Why don't we just, try again to rebuild? And then you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
Yeah,
and
that's terrible. Wow. So
now
anyway,
you have another mouth to feed, right?
What we wanted to give you in summary is this. If you're thinking about separation divorce, make sure that you get all of your financials in order to figure out what it is going to cost. If you have had like a property that you bought before you got together with your spouse, you need to decide what that's going to happen to it, right?
And what about remarriage? That's a whole other episode.
Oh gosh, my God.
If you want to get remarried, you better, I don't care if you have one house or 500 houses, really talk about that. That's something that you should
need to finalize that before
you
decide to go to the next step.
Prenup.
Because it can get very, very messy. So just remember that even if you have a TFSA, obviously it's always going to be in your name. You also have to prove the date when you started contributing to it. Your pensions, your RSPs, all of those things are in your name, and they may be, half of it may be awarded to your spouse, but you have to declare it.
Yeah, and there is this thing, and again, I'm not a lawyer, I can't say, but it's also to say, if I put money in, but it's built, I've been married for 10 years, and the interest that is accumulated over the 10 years, that's going to be affected as well. So that's something that you really have to talk to a lawyer about and really get that spelled out, and make sure you keep yourself safe. Nobody else is going to do it for you. I'm sorry to say. Take care of yourself, take care of what you want, and write down your wishes too. I think that's a big thing we all kind of forget, because people have said to me, well, what do you want? I go, well, I want everything. Okay, well, that's not, of course everybody wants to say that. It's not realistic. So really write down your wishes of how you want to proceed and what you really see as, do you want custody of your kids? Do you want custody of the dog? Do you want, whatever, a plan to pay, like, let's say I want to buy my house out. Do I want to give them all the money right now, or do I want to have a payment plan? There are all these little things that we don't have time to talk about today, but you have options. So we just want to tell you that please keep yourself, ahead of the game.
That's right. And that is super important. Thank you for bringing that up, because one of the things is that in a separation, if you have a marital home that you bought together and one of them decides to stay in the home, usually if you do have smaller children, it might be a good idea for the woman to keep the house so the children don't get moved around.
Displaced.
But exactly. But sometimes in the event, if the woman is not working and is not able to carry the mortgage to pay him out, you really need to figure out how that is going to be done. It all has to be documented, because otherwise it gets lost in the shuffle, and then you don't know if you owe the house, you don't owe the house, and it gets harder as you go along. So whatever you decide, try to document it early on, especially in your separation agreement, so you know what to do. If you decide, like even to keep, like you said, the benefits from a company from one to another, how long you're going to keep it for, right? Because the problem becomes is if one of them decides to get remarried, and now you're not going to be able to continue that, because as soon as you remarry, then now you have to kind of disclose that you have a new spouse, and now everything else gets caught up on the other end. So that you have to be very careful. So it gets really, really messy. So the best thing is, talk to your spouse and see if there's anything that you can work
Talk to your financial advisor.
Exactly. And see what it belongs to you. Right. What can you do, and how is it going to affect you long term? Yeah. I believe that when you are going through separation, your emotions are so bundled in the moment that you don't think about what's going to happen and how am I going to look like in the next 10 years, 20 years, right? Right. So that is what we just want to bring up this time. Talk to us and see what your specific situation is, and see if we can advise you in any way. So yes, and you know what? The one thing I want to lead or close out with is, as much as you're hurting and as emotional as the process is, you were married to this person, and at some point it was a good marriage, and really to remember those times and to be gentle with one another, I think is ultimately the well-being of you both mentally, and for your children to see that you are adults and you can talk amicably, and whatever the case may be, really try and be gentle with each other. That's ultimately like my goal is, there's no blame, there's no, well, maybe there is a little bit of blame, but there's that kind of trying to remember the good times and trying to remember that this person is someone that I did care about, I still do care about, and how can I make this process just smooth for everyone? Exactly. And even though you don't think the other person thinks that way, you be the bigger person, try and, smooth the road a little bit. Yeah. Can I say it that way? It is so important if it is possible, because sometimes one person is not very agreeable for whatever reason. Right. And, sometimes you do have to go to certain battles, but at least be prepared. If you can avoid it, do that. But if in the case that you can't, then try to be reasonable as much as possible, because if you're reasonable in court and the other person is not, then the judge will decide, okay, well, this person wants, all of these things that are not exactly, and they're making a document everything. Yeah, so, everything in writing, everything with dates, data separation, must, you got to agree on that. Yeah. So if you need any help to kind of putting together your financial disclosure, or you want to get your house valuated, or if you need a referral for a lawyer, mediator, or a mortgage broker to see how you can get, you may be able to buy the other half out, or what kind of options you have, let us know and see if there's any way that we can help you out. Yeah, we know people. Yeah. Okay, so with that today, that's everything. And please comment, ask us a question. A lot. Yeah, and this is, it's a lot of things that we just kind of touch up a little bit on each of the different things that you may want to think about, and that's it. So just send us a message, and we're here for you. So we are. And so with that, we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody. Bye.